The hierarchy salutes you, one and all, in the name of the living God. I am come this night directly from the heart of the great central sun, where I have studied and observed the inbreathing and the outbreathing of cycles by the Almighty One. I have seen, as I have witnessed of old, the coming forth of the white fire from the great hub that spirals throughout myriad formations of stars, universes, unto the periphery of cosmos. I have seen light expand, light transform, light descend, light receive the pattern and transmit it into the hearts of mankind. Precious ones, I ask you to bear with me as I explain to you this evening the indomitable, irrevocable, relentless power of the law of cycles, the infinite spark, the idea that descends from God, has a mission to accomplish. Beginning in the etheric plane, the plane of spirit fire, it comes forth. Precious hearts, the descent of that idea through the many cycles of manifestation contained within our Creator's consciousness cannot be impeded, and it cannot be long limited by the consciousness of mankind. Even the tiniest erg of energy pursues relentlessly its divine blueprint. Therefore you see that any part of life who places itself in opposition to the natural unfoldment of cycles will encounter deep trouble, disease and death, and all manner of inharmony within the body temple. For all of cosmos is a mighty tidal wave that keeps rolling onward in a mighty onrushing power of creation itself. Those who ride the crest of the wave on to victory are the immortals, and those who attempt to stay that tide are the mortals, who for a time remain in the mortal consciousness, and then, if they do not repent, they are no more. Can you not understand, then, that all sorrow, all discomfort is simply a lack of recognition, a lack of understanding, or a rebellion against the natural laws of the cycles of cosmos? Let us then enter into a spiral of light as it comes forth from the sun. Let us feel the precipitation of an idea from the heart of God into manifestation. It is like flowing with the current of a cool stream. We find that our consciousness is filled with the awe of the blueprint, the intricacy even of the design of a leaf or the tiniest form. We can penetrate to the very core of that idea and observe how the unfolding of the energy spirals from the heart of its flaming center occurs with precision timing, step by step, directed by the 12 solar hierarchies, which also have their focal point in the center of each flaming idea. The idea action, the ideation of the monad as it descends. Whether it be the individualized God flame that is a borning or an elemental part of life, the same tender care, the same ritual of fulfillment, of wholeness and of cycles must take place. The purity of creation, understood by God, in all of its ramifications, must now be understood by man, else man shall perish. For man himself, in his carnal consciousness, has initiated so many cycles that are coming to fruition that are not the righteousness, the right use of the laws of God. That when these cycles near completion, as they are in this age, there is a time of great travail, as the cycles of light and God's power move relentlessly, so man as a co-creator with God finds that the cycles which he has initiated also move on, unless he has the presence of mind to realize his miscreation and cry halt before the full inundation of the karmic penalty of his misuse of the law of cycles is upon him. Confusion arises then when the individual cannot identify the difference between a cycle originating in God's consciousness, a cycle originating in man's consciousness that is imbued with God, or a cycle that has originated in the energy veil spawned by the carnal mind. To distinguish between relative good and evil and absolute good is the office of the Christ within you. It is the office of the Christ to mediate between God and man, and the flaming sword which is yours to bear is the sword of cosmic Christ discrimination. Understand then that before you can get on the track of the cycles of God's consciousness and be carried by the mighty wave of light, you must know which track to follow. It is like a stream of headlights that appear in a still photograph taken on a dark night. Many lines of force are crisscrossing the human consciousness. Where shall we go, Lord? Thou hast the words of eternal life. Where shall mankind go when they have no standard, no teaching, no understanding, that good in the relative sense is no better than evil in the relative sense, and that only absolute good leads to absolute perfection? As Paul said, if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly appear? This means, if those who are striving to enter in at the strait gate, those who desire to see perfection and pursue the teaching as they understand it, if these also may fail, then where indeed do those who do not pursue and strive for good appear at all? It is as though they were not even blips on the screen of the Creator's consciousness. Do you understand, then, that a motive originating in the carnal mind that may serve some immediate, short-range purpose for good cannot necessarily be assessed as good in the long-range sense? Do you understand, precious ones? The motives for business, the motives for living, they may bring temporary alleviation of pain and suffering to another part of life. But is the ultimate end and the ultimate good of this service the ascension for the one rendering it and the ascension for the one receiving it? Sometimes the good you do may stay the karma that ought to return to another as pain and sorrow. Can this then be called absolute good? No, it is good in a relative sense. That is, it is good in relation to the consciousness where it now is. For instance, perhaps it is the karma of one to experience some pain, some deprivation, some suffering. Now, if you alleviate or interfere with the cycle of the return of that karma, the individual may feel comforted in a human way. He may be temporarily relieved, but in the absolute sense, he has been deprived of an opportunity to progress. I am certain that if you will meditate upon the laws of good, absolute good, and relative good and evil in the days that come, and call to me in the hierarchies of the sun for illumination and direction, you will be able to discern the sharp line of division between God's consciousness of good and man's consciousness of good. As the Lord hath said, your thoughts are not my thoughts. Beloved hearts, I desire to initiate within you a cycle of meditation, of thought about the universe and its many wonders, and how these wonders are being performed within your consciousness, and how you can flow with the mighty currents of life, and how this flowing with life is an entirely different art and science than that which is conceived of by the present generation, who are very loose with the words, flow with it. In reality, they know it not, but they flow with the astral currents and with the cycles that have been initiated in the darkness of mankind's consciousness. It is very easy to flow with these cycles, precious ones, and to think that they are good, because they are based upon the same laws that are followed by the absolute good of the Almighty One. There is only one way to precipitate, and whether God or man, good or evil, the same method must be used, and God's energy is used. It is simply encoiled, encircled in a veil of darkness. But this darkness men do not perceive, for they dwell in darkness, and they themselves are darkness. Who shall bring the light? Who shall cut the cord? Who shall break the Gordian knot? Who shall cut it, precious ones? The sword of cosmic Christ discrimination. And if you think you are lacking in that discrimination, then I pray you shall invoke it. For I come to warn you this night, there is grave danger in being caught up in the astral cycles that have been begun by life waves unknowing, unseeming. These cycles emanate from wars, from imperfect conceptions of government, from the brainwashing of the youth with intellectual concepts about life, from a materialistic science. And once a cycle is begun, it too carries that relentless theme that is the nature of deity himself, except it is in a perverted and lowly form. One of the greatest cycles that has ever been initiated successfully upon the planetary body in modern time is the cycle of the birth of Jesus the Christ and the initiation of Christianity. The perfect focusing of the Trinity of life by the Holy Family, the perfect outpicturing of the mission of the Master, left a record and an imprint upon every level of consciousness and upon the four lower bodies of everyone evolving upon the planetary home. The cycle, the inner cycle of that ideational pattern from the mind of God was complete and intact with the ascension of Jesus the Christ. Then the cycle of the spreading of the teaching of the Word and the law was begun, and that cycle has not been perfectly fulfilled. It has been distorted and tampered with, as mankind progressively over a 2,000-year period have perverted the conceptual patterns of the 12 hierarchies of the sun who contribute to the perfect design of the outpicturing of any precipitated form. And so we see that mankind's hatred, causing wars to be fought in the name of Christ, have left a bad stain upon that cycle. The amplification of the crucifixion, as the cycle went through the 2 o'clock line, the complete obliteration of the memory of the mastery of life in the race of the human consciousness, because that consciousness itself is rooted in mortality, in fear and doubt and death. And then there have been the false prophets and the teachers who have arisen, and by the power of the ego they have perverted the magnificent release of the divine ego that is forthcoming under the direction of the hierarchs of Aries. And then there has been mankind's rebellion and stubbornness, his rejection of the law, his attempts to intellectualize, to rationalize why that law might not be applicable in his time or age or situation. That has come through a lack of love and a rejection of the disciplines of the hierarchs of Taurus. And then the division of the mission of the Father-Mother God and the manifestation of the Christ within the mental and feeling bodies in direct defiance of the hierarchs of Gemini. And so you see how the cycle of Christianity has been perverted in each house of the solar hierarchies as it has come forth to be the religion of the golden age, which it has not fulfilled in this time. The sympathies of the 6 o'clock line of the human with itself, the denial of the Divine Mother and of the Virgin Mary and her representation of that Mother by segments of Christendom have aborted the cycle of the Divine Feminine that is begun on the 6 o'clock line. Ingratitude, hardness of heart has prevented mankind from receiving the fullness of the return currents of the Christ under the hierarchs of Leo. The sense of injustice, perverting God justice, and denying the offering of the hierarchs of Virgo on the 8 o'clock line. And now in the time when the physical manifestation of perfection should be apparent in every man, woman, and child, for at the end of the 2,000-year cycle it was preordained that everyone should walk the earth as Christ in embodiment, as the result of Jesus' example. Thus we see instead, perverting that position and rejecting the hierarchy of Libra, is mankind's own treachery, his deceit and intrigue. The merchandising and manipulation in the marts of commerce. This too is a perversion of the mission of the Christ, Christianity, and the Golden Rule. And then, one of the final tests of any precipitated form, under the hierarchs of Scorpio and the lords of creation, that initiation of self-love. Mankind do not know the meaning of love as Christ taught it. They love one another for selfish reasons. A selfless, spiritual, divine love is almost unknown upon this planetary home. And where there should be the delicate pink radiance of the Christ, there is the blood red of the sacrifice of the Lamb of God, who has been sacrificed since the foundation of the world because of mankind's selfishness and self-love. And where there should be God victory under the hierarchs of Sagittarius, there is resentment, denial, justification, revenge. And that is the state in which mankind find themselves today, reaping the cycle of the karma that they have sown. Sowing the wind and reaping the whirlwind, they are in a state of extreme resentment to the point and brink of total war and total self-destruction. Alas, this has been the aborting of a cycle, the aborting of the cycle of Christianity. Needless to say that the lords of mind have found in the archives of Christendom a great perversion of the original teachings of the law. But is God bereft? Is God stymied because man has perverted the cycle that he should have correctly initiated and then reaped? Indeed not. There have come forth many avatars and many opportunities. Not the least of these has been the sponsorship of the Summit Lighthouse by the Lords of Karma as the initiation of a new cycle to undo, to recreate, and to manifest, to precipitate that which was not done in the spreading abroad of Christianity by those to whom the authority of the cycle was entrusted. Do you see then that beginning at this 2,000-year period we enter, another opportunity for the precipitation in every level of consciousness of the true teachings of the law is given unto humanity. I come then as the initiator of cycles, and I say to you gathered here, and to those who are keepers of the flame across the face of the globe, do you understand your part in carrying the torch of the cycle? Whatever hierarchy you serve, whatever master, recognize your very key position in anchoring into the world of material form the cycles of the knowledge of the law. Without the proper manifestation of that law lived in your life most perfectly, anchored through literature and books and teaching and schools and colleges, this next 2,000-year cycle could also be aborted. But is the cycle ever aborted, precious ones? I must tell you nay. For the tides of light that come from the great central sun move on, and their hand is never stayed. It is mankind who fail. It is mankind who lose, and they are caught in the undercurrents, and they are drawn to the bottom and the depths of the sea of their own creation. The tides of light do move on, and those who are there to ride the crest to victory shall become the immortals. I hope that you understand that in all your endeavors and all that you attempt to do, you must likewise call upon the masters who give forth their love and assistance to assist you in the precipitation of all ideas that proceed from your mighty I Am presence. On a larger scale, there is no cycle dearer to the heart of God himself than this cycle of true religion, the true faith of old that has been preserved for centuries. But there are many, many cycles that must be fulfilled simultaneously, and many laborers are needed in the fields of the Father. I pray then that you will not allow pettiness, a lack of vision, a lack of perspective, to make you tarry 1 hour, 1 moment from your appointed course. For when you come right down to the very basic understanding of these cycles, you must realize that each moment is part of the cycle and is precious. And you must learn to flow with the tides of the cycles of mighty cosmos in order to arrive at the goal of perfection when the cycle is complete. The Lords of Karma have asked me to give you this explanation this evening, so that you might correctly and scientifically implement your lives, so that you might rid yourselves of conditions that are the result of your being upon the wrong track, the tracks of darkness and of cycles that are not real. I ask you to examine where you are going, quo vadis, and what is determining the course of your life, and where were the patterns and habit formations begun that cause you to do the things you do each day in your service, in your job, and in your life. Challenge each one on paper, write each one down, ask yourself, does this activity which I pursue, to which I give God's energy and endow with my life, does it lead to the absolute end of perfection, of the ascension, and of the victory of life for the planet? Give this acid test and ask the question. And if you find that you cannot answer in the affirmative, consider then how you can eliminate the feeding of this cycle with your energy from your world. Only thus will you become one-pointed, as stars that traverse the sky, never deviating in their course, but going their appointed rounds. So be thou, sons and daughters of the flame, sons and daughters of the Most High God. This teaching was given to you in the heart of the great central sun at the hour of your natal day. At the birth of the soul, you understood innately the law of cycles. Look at yourselves now, how you have reaped the cycles of karma that you have sown. Must you stand there and allow them to continue on their course? Indeed not, for you are a co-creator. Ask then the Almighty to arrest those cycles not of the light that are continuing in the world, in your consciousness and in the planetary body. For the mighty I Am Presence has the authority and the power to instantaneously arrest and reverse any cycle, and to cause a complete erasing, a disintegration of it, right back to the 12 o'clock line. It is as though you would see a moving picture in reverse. All of a sudden, the figures go back into the little holes from which they came, and they reverse the order of their activities. This is the process of transmutation. This is how energy is freed of an imperfect cycle. I say to you, you must demand and command it in the name of the Christ, that every single cycle of every single cell and atom within your form that is not outpicturing the perfect cycles of the Christ consciousness is now dissolved, is now arrested and turned back by the authority of your God presence. If you will but make that invocation each morning, you will find in a very short time that only the cycles of immortal life and your divine plan fulfilled and your ascension will prevail. And then the needless draining of energy into the subconscious reaches of your mind, whereby most people drain 75% or more of their daily allotment into needless, useless patterns and cycles, long outworn, will be liberated for the perfectionment of the earth and of your life. This is why an avatar, a Christ, is born when the threefold flame is balanced. This is why one man, focusing the power of God, is all that is required by the hierarchy for the salvation of a planet. For such tremendous energies are liberated by the consciousness that is one-pointed, that I cannot tell you how important it is to undo every thread that you have sown in ignorance and in error. I trust you will give serious thought, for upon your implementation of the wisdom I have released depends the karmic board's release of light at the new year. I look forward to welcoming you to that class of the New Year's cycle. I pray that you will attend and be ready to receive the allotment of light that can be increased 1,000-fold if your consciousness is pure, and if the lords of karma see that among mankind 100 souls have dedicated their 4 lower bodies to the one-pointed cycle of the manifestation of the consciousness of the Christ and of the law of the ages brought forth to perfection. I have come by the authority of the flame of opportunity, and in the name of Portia, the goddess of justice, the goddess of liberty, the goddess of mercy, and the goddess of truth, I speak on behalf of the karmic board and all serving with us. This is your opportunity to free mankind by the knowledge and correct use of the science of cosmic cycles. I thank you.